Welcome back to another deep dive.
Yeah.
Last time we kind of left things hanging in Salem Village,
Yeah.
with the accusations flying around. Today we're going even deeper into all this with some court transcripts and some excerpts from a history podcast you gave us.
Yeah.
It's just fascinating how those accusations
Yeah.
went from those kind of on the edges of society
Right.
to some pretty prominent people.
It's a classic case, I think, of how fear just spirals out of control,
Mhm.
even in a community that prides itself on piety.
Oh, yeah. Order and all that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
As we're going to see the Salem witch trials, they weren't really just about witchcraft.
Right.
They were about power and social dynamics
Oh, yeah.
and really the fabric of Puritan society.
Okay, so let's start by just quickly recapping where we left off with the American History Tellers podcast. So
Okay.
we had Tituba, the enslaved woman, Sarah Good, and Sarah Osborne, who were seen as social outcasts, and then young Dorothy Good,
Right.
whose only crime was being the daughter of Sarah Good,
Yep.
accused of witchcraft. And of course, Elizabeth Proctor,
Yeah.
whose family seems to have always been kind of at odds with some of the villagers.
Yeah, and it's important to note that Puritans really believed that one's standing in the community was a reflection of their spiritual state.
Right.
So people who were already marginalized,
Right.
they were just seen as more susceptible to the influence of the devil.
Hmm.
But the case of Martha Corey, this really challenges that assumption. I mean,
Right.
here we have a woman who is a full member of the church, part of the elect.
Oh, this elect thing, can you tell the listener a little bit more about that?
Oh, of course. So in Puritan theology, there were only a select few who were chosen by God for salvation
Okay.
and being a member of the elect.
Right,
This carried immense social and spiritual weight.
right.
So when Martha Corey, a woman of such high standing, was then accused by 12-year-old Ann Putnam Jr. of tormenting her with her specter, it shook the community.
Wow.
It really did.
So this is a big shift for them to go from chosen to accused. So it sounds like no one was really safe,
Exactly.
even at the top.
Exactly. And this accusation also brings in like a key element that fueled the trials.
Okay,
Spectral evidence.
okay,
This whole idea that the accused could send their spirit out to harm people.
okay.
And this was taken very seriously by the court.
So how could you defend yourself against an invisible tormentor?
Yeah, that's what made it so insidious.
Right,
It was based totally on the subjective experiences of the accusers,
right.
often these young girls
Oh, wow.
who were very prone to fits and hallucinations.
Right.
There was no way to disprove it,
Right.
no physical evidence to present.
So the fact that these accusers were primarily young girls adds another layer to this whole thing.
Absolutely.
These were individuals who, in Puritan society, had very little power.
Exactly. Think about it. Suddenly, these girls who were expected to be completely subservient and obedient,
Right.
they were the center of attention.
Wow.
And everything they said was just scrutinized.
Right? Their claims taken as gospel truth.
Wow.
They were even excused from chores
Oh, right.
and given special treatment.
Yeah, who wouldn't want to be excused from chores? But yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, consciously or unconsciously, these girls were wielding immense power.
Right,
And in a society where obedience and deference to authority were paramount,
right.
their accusations carried a lot of weight.
So our sources mention this one family, the Putnams,
Right.
who were some of the first to make these accusations.
Right.
And Ann Putnam Jr., who accused Martha Corey,
Uh-huh.
was their daughter. So tell me about them.
So the Putnams were a prominent family in Salem Village,
Okay.
but they also had a history of land disputes and other conflicts with people.
Okay.
Some historians believe that just personal grudges and rivalries played a role in fueling their accusations.
Oh, it's almost like they saw an opportunity here
Yeah.
with the witch trials to just kind of settle old scores,
Right.
target people
Yeah.
that they didn't like. And the case of Rebecca Nurse really kind of supports this theory.
Okay.
This 70-year-old pillar of the community, known for her piety
Right.
and good works.
Right.
But she also had this long-running land dispute with the Putnams.
So even someone like her with an impeccable reputation wasn't safe.
It seems not, no.
Wow.
And the fact that Ann Putnam Sr., Ann Jr.'s mother, she was the one who legitimized the accusations against Martha Corey and Rebecca Noche
Okay.
by filing a formal complaint against them.
Wow.
It just strengthens this theory.
So these accusations weren't coming out of nowhere.
No.
There was something else going on here.
It seems like they were orchestrated
Right.
to consolidate power or eliminate rivals.
The court transcripts of Nurse's examination are just heartbreaking.
I know.
She seems just totally bewildered bewildered by the accusations,
Yeah.
desperately trying to defend herself against these claims that just seem outlandish.
Right. Imagine being accused of sending your spirit to torment young Anne, trying to convert her to Satan, even taking communion while secretly pledged to the devil.
Wow.
All based on Anne's word
Right.
and the reactions of these other girls who
Yeah.
were just essentially mimicking each other's afflictions to create this spectacle
Oh, wow.
of suffering.
It seems like the court was more interested in the show than in actually finding out the truth.
It does seem that way.
And we have to remember, this was all happening in this deeply religious society
Of course.
where they believed in the devil.
Right.
So they were already looking for signs of the devil everywhere.
Yeah. From illness and misfortune
Right.
to social unrest.
So witchcraft provided a really convenient explanation for things that they couldn't understand.
It's a scapegoat
Right.
for all their fears and anxieties.
Right.
A way to make sense of the world that felt chaotic and unpredictable.
And then we have John Proctor, Elizabeth's husband, who initially comes off as a voice of reason in all this,
Yeah.
skeptical of everything that's going on.
Yeah.
And he tries to get his servant, Mary Warren, to
Yeah.
stop
Right.
because she started having these fits
Yeah, alongside the other girl.
alongside the other girls.
He represents, I think, the pragmatic side of the community,
Okay.
the people who are starting to question these accusations.
Okay.
He even suggested at one point that the girls should be whipped
Oh, wow.
to knock some sense into them.
Yeah, that's a pretty bold statement
It was.
in that climate.
Yeah, speaking out against the accusations or even questioning the girls' behavior was seen as a sign of suspicion.
Wow.
It's a reminder that even in a society that valued piety,
Right.
questioning authority could have some serious consequences.
And then to make things worse, Abigail Williams, Reverend Parris's niece,
Yes,
claims she sees John Proctor's specter tormenting her.
right.
So she was one of the first to experience afflictions, so she had some credibility.
Lot of credibility.
Right, and she was tied to Reverend Parris.
Uh-huh. The most powerful figure in Salem Village,
And her accusation targets John Proctor.
who was already under suspicion.
Right, so it's like she just poured gasoline on the fire,
Exactly.
really solidified the case against him.
Absolutely.
This leads to one of the most dramatic scenes in the early stages.
Yes.
Elizabeth Proctor being brought in for questioning at the meeting house.
It must have been chaotic,
Oh, I bet.
with the girls going wild,
Yeah.
claiming to see her specter up on a beam,
Yeah.
and then turning on John and accusing him as well.
So this just shows how mass hysteria can just take over,
Absolutely.
with the accusers feeding off each other.
Yeah, and their claims getting more and more outlandish
Right.
and impossible to refute.
And now this high-ranking official deputy governor, Thomas Danforth,
Yeah.
is presiding over it all.
So it really signifies that the trials were no longer a local matter.
Okay?
They had caught the attention of the highest authority
Wow.
in the colony.
So by the end of this part of the story, both John and Elizabeth Proctor are in jail,
Yeah.
along with Martha Corey and Rebecca Nurse,
Right.
and the accusations are spreading.
They're starting to spread to neighboring towns.
Wow, so this isn't just a Salem Village thing anymore.
No, it suggests that the fear and paranoia that
Wow.
gripped Salem Village
Yeah,
is infecting the entire region.
it's like a virus,
It is.
spreading from person to person, town to town.
Fueled by fear, suspicion,
Yeah.
and just the desire to find someone to blame
Yeah.
for all these uncertainties of life.
In 17th century New England,
Exactly.
but of course the story doesn't end there.
It doesn't.
It's going to take a really dramatic turn.
As the trials move beyond Salem Village
Okay.
onto a much larger stage.
And as we move into that next phase,
Yeah.
we have to remember that this wasn't just mass hysteria.
No.
It was also a reflection of the social, political, and religious anxieties
Absolutely.
of this community grappling with change, uncertainty,
Of course.
the very nature of good and evil.
A very complex story.
Yeah, and we've only just begun to scratch the surface. But before we delve into that next chapter, let's take a closer look at some of these individuals
Okay.
who played a key role in shaping what happened in Salem.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we left off with this whole circle of accusations
Right.
widening and spreading beyond Salem Village.
Uh-huh.
Things are getting pretty intense.
They are.
No one seems safe from suspicion.
Nope.
But our sources suggest that this next development is really going to shake things up.
Oh, yeah.
What happens next?
Well, the accusations take a very unexpected turn.
Okay.
They point the finger at a former minister named George Burroughs.
A minister
Yeah.
accused of witchcraft That's a twist.
Yeah.
You'd think someone in that position
You would think.
would be above suspicion.
Especially in a climate of fear and paranoia like this. But even a man of the cloth
Right.
can become a target,
Oh.
especially when you consider Burroughs' past. He served as the minister of Salem Village
Okay.
years earlier, but left under a cloud of controversy, including disputes with, you guessed
The
it,
Putnams.
the Putnams. So there's already some bad blood
Yeah.
between Burroughs and the family. That's basically at the center of all this.
Right at the heart of it.
But it sounds like there's more to Burroughs' story than just a local feud.
There is.
Oh, okay.
So Burroughs had also lived in Maine during a period of intense conflict with Native Americans.
Okay.
He had even survived 2 attacks.
Wow.
And remember, the Puritans saw Native Americans as instruments of the devil.
Right.
So this connection to a perceived enemy,
Mm-hmm.
combined with his past troubles in Salem, made him a prime target for suspicion.
So they were really looking for a scapegoat here.
Seems like it.
Someone to blame for all the turmoil and uncertainty.
Right. And who better to fit that role
Right.
than a former minister with this kind of mysterious past and ties to what they considered the devil's work?
So Ann Putnam Jr.,
Yes, her again.
same young woman who accused Martha Corey and Rebecca Nurse,
Right.
she points the finger at Burroughs.
She's claiming that he led these witch meetings and boasted about killing his wives.
Mm-hmm.
She even accused him of bewitching soldiers to their deaths.
Right, at the hands of Native Americans.
So it's almost like she was just tapping into all their anxieties
Ah.
about the devil and Native Americans and witchcraft.
And kind of wrap them up into
Yeah.
this one terrifying accusation.
It's just incredible to me how quickly people were willing to believe these accusations without any real evidence.
I know, it really speaks to the power of fear
Yeah.
and how it can just warp our perception of reality.
Fear can be a powerful motivator for sure.
It can, and in this case, it just completely overrides any sense of reason or logic.
Right.
People were just terrified of the devil
Right.
and his supposed influence in their community
Ah.
that they were willing to accept even the most outlandish accusations as truth.
So, in our source from American History Tellers, they describe Burroughs' arrest
Oh, yeah?
in really vivid detail.
Yeah.
He was having dinner with his family in Maine when the marshal shows up with a warrant.
Can you imagine
Yeah.
1 minute you're having dinner with your loved ones and
Yeah.
the next you're being accused of conspiring with the devil
Yeah.
and dragged off to Salem?
That's crazy how quickly life could just change.
I know.
like that.
Yeah. And for Burroughs, the accusations only got worse on the way back to Salem.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the afflicted girls claimed that his specter was tormenting them
Wow.
even more intensely now.
So even as he's being transported to face these charges, the accusations against him are growing.
Right. It's like there was this concerted effort to really build a case against him,
Right.
make him the embodiment of all their fears.
And then in his examination, the magistrates focused on his physical strength
Yes.
as evidence of witchcraft.
Now, Burroughs had always been known for his strength,
Okay.
but in this context, it was twisted
Right.
into something sinister.
So even something as simple as being physically strong
Right.
could be interpreted as evidence of witchcraft.
Right. It seems like anything and everything could be twisted to fit the narrative they were creating.
How did he even defend himself against any of this?
I mean, it was virtually impossible
Right.
to defend yourself against these accusations that were based on spectral evidence
Right.
and these subjective interpretations, you know?
Yeah.
But Burroughs maintained his innocence,
Okay.
but it just fell on deaf ears.
Wow.
The court was much more interested in confirming its preconceived notions
Right.
than actually seeking the truth.
It's just heartbreaking to think about.
I know a man's life hanging in the balance
Right.
based on the whims of terrified teenagers
Yeah.
and a court system blinded by fear and prejudice.
And this was all before the official trials even began.
We still have the governor's arrival,
Right.
the establishment of a special court,
Right.
and the trials themselves.
It sounds like things are going to get even crazier.
As we move into that next phase,
Yeah.
it's important to keep in mind the social and political context. That played such a huge role in shaping all this.
Yeah.
Remember, Salem was on edge,
Right.
struggling with internal divisions and all these external threats.
Uh-huh.
The witch trials just provided an outlet for all these anxieties,
Okay.
a way to channel their fears into action.
So it wasn't just about individual accusations and personal vendettas.
No, it was much bigger than that.
It was a reflection of the anxieties and uncertainties of 17th century New England.
Exactly. History is never as simple as it seems.
Right. There are always these layers.
Layers upon layers.
Yeah, of context and motivation.
Right.
So before we get into the trials themselves,
Okay.
there's one more person I want to talk about.
Okay.
Deliverance Hobbs.
Yes.
So she's the stepmother of Abigail Hobbs.
Right. The teenager who confessed earlier.
Right.
And it seems like Deliverance followed in her stepdaughter's footsteps
Okay.
by providing some crucial testimony against George Burroughs.
Okay, so what did she say?
Well, she confessed under pressure from the magistrates, corroborating Ann Putnam Jr.'s claims about Burroughs leading these witch meetings.
Wow.
She even added her own chilling details,
Like what?
describing Burroughs presiding over satanic rituals
Oh.
on Reverend Parris's property.
So her testimony really solidified this image of Burroughs as the ringleader
Yeah.
of this whole conspiracy.
As this witch conspiracy.
Yeah, but even with these confessions, the accusations just keep coming.
Right. It's like this witch hunt had taken on a life of its own,
Yeah.
spiraling out of control.
If it had continued, how far do you think it would have gone?
It's impossible to say, but it
Yeah.
was definitely escalating rapidly.
Yeah.
But fortunately, as we'll see,
Okay.
the tide is about to turn.
Okay.
Skepticism was growing,
Okay.
doubts were being raised,
Yeah.
and this reign of terror was about to come to an end.
So before we move on to the trials and the end of this whole witch hunt,
Okay.
we need to talk about Reverend Samuel Parris.
Yeah.
He seems like he played a key role in just fueling the flames.
Oh, absolutely. Reverend Parris was a very divisive figure in Salem Village,
Right.
known for his rigid beliefs and his authoritarian style.
Okay.
He'd already alienated a significant part of the community
Right.
before the witch trials even started. And his actions during this time just exacerbated the situation.
So he delivered this series of sermons
Yeah.
that really kind of ramped up the fear,
Yeah.
warning everyone that the devil was lurking, even among church members.
Yeah, no one was safe from his influence.
It seems like he was creating this climate of suspicion and paranoia.
Absolutely. His sermons were full of fire and brimstone,
Yeah?
emphasizing the threat of eternal damnation
Wow.
and the constant presence of evil in their midst.
So he was saying that the devil was after them.
Yeah, he even said that the devil was raised against us
Wow.
and that his rage was vehement and terrible.
Wow, that's scary.
Yeah.
And let's not forget his niece,
Abigail Williams,
one of the first accusers.
one of the most vocal accusers.
Right.
It's hard not to see the connection there.
Yeah.
Even if it's just subconscious.
Right.
It seems like Paris benefited from the trials in a way,
Okay.
consolidating his power,
Uh-huh.
silencing his critics.
So he was using this chaos and fear to his advantage.
Yeah, solidifying his position as the moral authority in Salem Village.
Wow. It's a reminder that even in a situation like this where it seems like it's just mass hysteria,
Right.
there are these individual agendas
There are.
and power dynamics at play.
Always.
People can manipulate events
Of course they can.
to get what they want.
For their own gain, even under the guise of religious piety.
Wow.
The Salem witch trials were not a simple story of good versus evil. It was
Yeah.
much more complex than that,
Okay.
shaped by individual choices and political maneuvering
Yeah.
and just this deep-seated fear of the unknown.
Okay. Well, I'm ready to see how this all plays out.
Me too.
Let's move on to the next part of our deep dive
Let's do it.
and explore the trials themselves. The evidence and how this whole crazy chapter in American history comes to a close.
Okay.
Okay. So we've seen how this fear and paranoia just took over Salem,
Right.
leading to accusations against prominent figures like Reverend Burroughs
Yeah.
and a growing number of confessions.
It really felt like things had just spiraled completely out of control.
Did anyone try to stop this? What happened next?
Well, the crisis reached a new level when the new governor, William Phipps,
Okay.
arrived in Boston in mid-May
Okay.
1692.
So a new governor.
Yeah, he faced a very challenging situation
Oh, yeah.
with dozens of accused witches in jail,
Wow.
and the accusations were still coming in.
So how did he address this whole crisis?
Well, Governor Phipps, he established a court of oyer and terminer.
What's that?
This special court set up to handle the witchcraft cases,
Okay.
and it consisted of prominent judges
Okay.
and magistrates from across the colony.
Wow. So things were getting official.
They were.
And what was the first order of business for this new court?
So they moved pretty swiftly,
Okay.
and their first trial was perhaps the most well-known, the trial of Bridget Bishop.
Oh, right. Bridget Bishop.
Yeah, remember her, the woman with a somewhat scandalous reputation?
Yeah, the whispers about her behavior
Right.
in that torn coat
Uh-huh.
as evidence of a spectral attack.
So during her trial, a whole parade of witnesses testified against her,
Oh, wow.
claiming she bewitched pigs,
Like,
caused illness, and tormented them with her specter.
oh, wow.
And the afflicted girls played a prominent role,
Oh, of course.
claiming to be tormented by Bishop's spirit right there in the courtroom.
So again, this is all spectral evidence.
Right.
How could anyone defend themselves against this?
It was virtually impossible,
Wow.
especially with the court accepting it as legitimate evidence.
That's crazy.
I know.
What was the outcome?
So Bridget Bishop was found guilty
Oh, wow.
and sentenced to death by hanging.
Wow.
She became the first person executed for witchcraft in Salem.
Wow, that's a turning point.
Yeah, it was no longer about just accusations and imprisonment.
Right.
Lives were now at stake.
So this must have sent shockwaves through the community
It did.
to see one of their own hanged for something like this based on such flimsy evidence.
Yeah, but unfortunately, Bridget Bishop's execution really set a precedent
Oh, no.
for those to follow.
Okay.
Over the next few months, 18 more people were hanged for witchcraft in Salem.
18 people.
Yeah.
That's just awful.
It's hard to grasp the injustice and the tragedy of it all.
Yeah. Did anyone speak out against this?
Thankfully, there were a few brave voices
Okay, good.
who dared to question all this.
Okay.
One of them was a prominent figure, Reverend Increase Mather,
Okay.
a respected theologian and president of Harvard College.
Wow.
He argued that it was better to let 10 suspected witches go free
Okay.
than to condemn one innocent person.
Wow.
And his stance, along with growing skepticism in the community, it helped shift public opinion.
Okay.
As the trials continued, the evidence became more and more outlandish, and doubts began to surface.
Even among the judges.
Even among some of the judges, yeah.
So they were starting to question the spectral evidence.
Yeah, finally.
Wow. So there was a little bit of hope.
There was
What finally put a stop to all this?
Governor Phipps,
Okay.
who had initially supported the trials.
Okay.
He started to have some serious concerns as things were spiraling.
So he finally realized that things had gone too far.
Yeah, and he took action.
Okay.
He dissolved the court of Oyer and Terminer,
Okay.
which had overseen all the trials and convictions,
Okay.
and established a new court with stricter rules.
Okay.
This new court, they prohibited the use of spectral evidence.
Oh, wow. So that's a major blow to the prosecution.
It was.
What happened to the people who were already accused or in jail?
Well, without the spectral evidence, the cases just crumbled.
Oh, wow.
Most of them were acquitted or pardoned,
Okay.
and those who had been convicted but not yet executed were released.
Okay, well, that's a relief at least.
Yeah, the damage had been done, but
Yep.
the cycle of accusations and executions was finally broken.
So what can we learn from this?
Well, it shows us the danger of mass hysteria,
Right.
where fear and suspicion can override reason and justice.
Right.
It highlights how important critical thinking is and skepticism,
Yeah.
especially when we're faced with these extraordinary claims and social pressure.
So we shouldn't just blindly believe everything we hear,
No.
even if everyone else seems to be on board.
Right. Even seemingly rational societies are not immune to this. We
Right.
see this throughout history.
Yeah.
Fear-mongering, scapegoating,
Uh-huh.
the erosion of due process.
Yeah.
These are all themes that echo even in our own time.
And of course, we have to remember the victims
Yes.
of the Salem witch trials.
Those who were falsely accused,
Right.
imprisoned, and executed.
Their stories are really important. They remind us how fragile justice can be.
They serve as a reminder of the human cost of fear,
Right.
intolerance,
And the abuse of power.
and the abuse of power.
Yeah.
It's a legacy we must never forget.
What a journey this has been.
It has.
We started with just whispers of witchcraft.
Right.
And it turned into this frenzy of accusations.
Trials and executions.
Yeah, and then thankfully it finally collapsed.
It's a chilling but ultimately illuminating deep dive into this dark chapter.
Yeah.
As you continue to learn about this, I really encourage you to check out the primary sources,
Okay.
the court transcripts,
Uh-huh.
letters, diaries.
Okay.
These firsthand accounts just give you a window into what it was like
Wow.
to live through this.
Yeah.
They allow us to connect with their humanity
Right.
and understand this on a much more personal level.
So it's a good reminder that history is more than just dates and names.
It's a tapestry
Yeah.
woven from the lives and experiences of real people.
Right. By engaging with their stories.
Yeah.
We can learn so much about ourselves and our society.
And the enduring power of the human spirit.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
It was my pleasure. It was